V'chol Torah she'en imah melacha. A person who studies Torah with and does not engage in productive work of any kind, Safah b'Torah. Such Torah eventually will unravel. Such a thing is not tenable, and will eventually lead to negative things. As Rambam says, with Sof Adam Zeh, and such a person, unless a person is independently wealthy, which is possible, which is perhaps a very great beracha, if that wealth is used correctly. We mentioned, I think last time, that the Ra'avad, who was very wealthy, used that wealth to establish a yeshiva where he himself provided all the needs for the Talmidim who came and stayed with him. He obviously had to rent a house for them, and he provided them with food and lodgings. Such a person is doing a wonderful thing, obviously, apart from the fact that the Ravad was teaching Torah and was one of the greatest of the Rishonim. But if a person is not in that position, and a person assumes that I will somehow manage to exist in this world in some miraculous fashion, well, you should know, one does not run one's life, one does not plot out one's track and path in life based on nisim, on miracles or things that are unlikely to occur. And therefore, Sof Adam Zeh shehem melastim et habriyot, or melastes et habriyot. The more correct Girusa is melastes. Lesotim or lesotes is a highway robber. In other words, such a person will be forced to do all manner of things which are dishonest and forbidden in order to survive, and that is a terrible situation in which to place oneself. I want to read briefly from what Rambam writes in his Perush on the Mishnah in Perek Revi'i of Masechet Avot. The Mishnah states here, Rabbi Sadok Omer, Lo ta'asem al Torah litgadel bahem. That's exactly what we heard a moment ago. Rambam quoted from that. V'lo kordon lahpor bahem. Kach haya Hillel Omer, U'dishtamash b'Torah halaf. He who uses the Torah or turns it into a crown or a way of promoting himself in this world, halaf, in other words, will be removed from this world. These are all statements from the Mishnah, and the Rambam just quoted these very words. Rambam in his Perush on the Mishnah here says, he begins by saying that he intended not to speak about this at length, or he thought perhaps he might not. And he says, why? I know what I have to say on this matter will not find favor in the eyes of most great Torah scholars. And perhaps all of them. Aval Omar V'lo asim lev. Nevertheless, I will say what I think needs to be said, and I will put all that aside. And I will disregard various chachamim who have perhaps said other things in the past or in the present. Keep in mind, when Rambam wrote these words, he was at most around 30, perhaps a bit less, in his late 20s. Rambam says here, Al taseh haTorah koldom lahpor ba, klomar al tahshavena keli lefanasa. Do not consider the Torah a way of making a living. And he says there are people. This was the case in Rambam's day with regards to the yeshivot in Bavel, he says there are Chachamim shekava'u la'asmam zechuyot ala yichidim wa ala kehilot, who claim that individual Jews or communities must support them financially. They made these positions of Torah, positions of power connected to the Torah, okay, muchasim, like the laws, similar to the regulations of kings who lay down that everyone has to pay me tax of a certain amount, and they claim that this is what people must do. And Rambam says about this, "V'chol zeh ta'uth she'en lo yesod b'Torah." And as I said, there is much to be said about this, and this is not the time or the place. There are many sources within Rambam, and there are other sources, other Chachamim. I will just quote here a couple of things. A couple of facts need to be stated. We mentioned already that Rambam's brother David was a merchant, and he used to travel by sea to India and other such places to import spices. And Rambam writes explicitly in a letter that we have. Rambam writes that his brother had uviyado mamon rab li velo ulahirim. In other words, how did his brother engage in this business, which requires a lot of investment? You have to have a ship, you have to travel a long way, it takes time, months, and you have to buy the merchandise over there, etc., etc. All this requires money given to him, either his own money, his brother's money, but Rambam says also li velo ulahirim. So I had some money, and I gave it to him, and I invested with him. So his brother David did the work, he did the traveling, and he was the merchant, and he brought the merchandise back to Egypt and to other places, and sold it at profit, a great profit, probably. Spices at that time were black pepper in certain times in the Middle Ages was worth more by weight than gold, because it was, amongst other reasons, because it was used to preserve meat. Peppered, dried meat could keep for a very long time. So we see that Rambam was not involved in some melacha during this period of his life, and this continued until his brother David was lost at sea, which is a tremendous tragedy, which Rambam describes in detail and his great sorrow and in his mourning. And it was at that time that Rambam had no choice but to begin to work as a doctor, which he had studied. He knew he had studied medicine before, but he had not worked in this field, as far as we know, until he had no choice. Apparently, up until this time, he was able to provide for himself and his family from what his brother was able to provide from his business activities, and the rest of it. And Rambam was free to study Torah, which we all know that he did, and therefore Rambam's brother David definitely has a tremendous zechuyot in that the entire world was able to benefit from Rambam's study of Torah. Rambam also states, so the first point to understand from what I just said is that Rambam spoke about someone who imagines they will demand tzedakah, charity from others, in order that they be able to study Torah. But if there are people who, such as was the case with the Rambam and his brother, if there are people who wish to support you, who wish to, that perhaps you will invest with them, but they will do the hard work. They will do the heavy lifting, and you will be able to gain from the profits, and you'll be able to devote your time to Torah and such spiritual activities. That is not demanding tzedakah from others. That is an arrangement, and that is a legitimate arrangement. This also reminds us of what Chazal speak about Yisachar and Zebulun. Again, we don't go into all the various sources, but the fact is Chazal do discuss this idea of one group of people, one shevet, one tribe, which was active again in traveling the seas in order to, because that was a very lucrative trade and provided much income. And these people wished to support the study of Torah. That Rambam was not speaking about. Rambam spoke about lo ya'aseh melacha v'yitparnes min hasadaka, and will demand that others support them, and will knock on people's doors and ask them to support their study of Torah. That Rambam says is a Hilul Hashem. But if it is done of their own volition, perhaps very enthusiastically also, because they know that I cannot do what this person does. I cannot study Torah all day, and I will not be a great scholar, but I understand the necessity for such a thing, and I wish to play a part and I have a role to play here. That is something different.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.